In the summer of 1975, Clara Moss appeared to have the perfect life. She lived in a quiet town, shared a modest home with her husband, and maintained the image of a devoted wife. But behind closed doors, that image was beginning to crack. Friends later described Clara as increasingly bitter and withdrawn. She felt ignored, overlooked, trapped in a marriage that no longer revolved around her. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Her husband was having an affair. For Clara, the betrayal wasn't something she could forgive. It was something she intended to punish. Investigators would later believe that Clara spent weeks planning her revenge. On a cold October evening, she confronted her husband and his lover at a secluded lakeside cabin. Neither survived the night. The murders shocked the community. But what happened next was even more disturbing. Rather than face suspicion herself, Clara quietly allowed investigators to focus on another man, a local mechanic who had crossed paths with the victims shortly before their deaths. The evidence was circumstantial. The case was weak. Yet the innocent man was arrested, charged, and publicly branded a killer. It appeared Clara had gotten away with the perfect crime. But secrets have a way of resurfacing. As time passed, several people began questioning the official story. Witness statements didn't line up. Timelines contradicted the prosecution's theory. More importantly, multiple individuals reported hearing Clara make disturbing comments about her husband's affair before the murders took place. Soon, whispers became accusations, and accusations became a new investigation. When authorities reopened the case, the spotlight shifted directly onto Clara Moss. She denied everything. At trial, Clara portrayed herself as a grieving widow who rumors and speculation had unfairly targeted. Her defense team argued there was no direct evidence tying her to the killings, and for a while, it seemed the strategy might work. Jurors appeared divided. The prosecution's case was hanging by a thread. Then, everything changed. A surprise witness stepped forward. Under oath, the witness revealed details that had never been made public. Details that only the real killer could have known. The testimony shattered Clara's defense. After deliberating, the jury returned a unanimous verdict. Guilty. 2 counts of first-degree murder. The woman who had spent years hiding behind lies and deception had finally been exposed. Clara Moss was sentenced to death. The death chamber at the old state penitentiary was only 40 feet from Clara's cell. 14 steps by the guard's count. Some inmates crawled. Some sang. At 5:47 p.m., a matron entered Clara's cell carrying a pair of electric clippers. The head went first. Clara sat cross-legged on her cot, her back straight, while her brown hair fell in clumps around her. No tears, no prayers. The matron later told a reporter, "It was like shaving a statue." Then they lifted her gray cotton dress. Her right leg, from ankle to above the knee, was lathered and scraped clean. The copper electrode needed direct contact. No hair, no cloth. Nothing between Clara Moss and 2,000 volts. The chair was oak, dark, shined like a piece of furniture you'd see in a bank lobby. 2 leather straps for the arms, 2 for the legs. A thick strap across the chest. And the headpiece, a wet sponge inside a leather skull cap, clamped over her crown. The executioner was anonymous. Some said he was a convict from another wing earning time off. Others said he was a traveling electrician from Baton Rouge. Clara didn't care. To the witnesses seated behind the thick glass, Clara Moss looked like stone. Her shaved head caught the harsh electric light. Her jaw was set. Her eyes were dry. She had refused her last meal. She had walked the last mile without a tremor. But here's what the witnesses didn't see. Here's what the official report doesn't record. They started with her wrists. The left one first. The leather was old, worn soft by a dozen condemned men and 2 women before her. The guard pulled it tight. Not cruel, just precise. The buckle cinched with a click that echoed in the bare chamber. Clara's left hand was still, but inside her chest, something cracked. "You can still pull away," a voice whispered. "You can still scream. You can still make them stop." She didn't. She wouldn't. She had promised herself that much in the 3 years she'd spent staring at her cell ceiling. The right wrist came next. The guard pulled the strap harder this time. Clara felt the leather bite into the thin skin over her pulse. Her heart was hammering now, a wild, trapped thing. But her face gave nothing. Then the chest strap. This one went across her sternum, just below her breasts. The guard threaded it through the iron frame of the chair and pulled. Clara felt her ribcage compress. Not enough to hurt. Enough to remind her that she could no longer take a full breath. Clara's right leg was already bare, shaved clean that afternoon. The executioner pressed the electrode against her calf, just below the knee. It was cold, shockingly cold, like someone had pressed a piece of winter against her skin. Between the electrode and her flesh, he placed a wet sponge, fresh water, dripping. Clara heard the drip before she felt it. The water ran down her calf, slow as a tear, into her sock. She shivered. Just once. Just a flicker. This was the part she had dreaded for 3 years. Not the pain, not the death, the closeness of it. The executioner lifted the headpiece. It was a leather cap, shaped like a skull, lined with copper mesh. Inside it, another wet sponge, freshly soaked. He lowered it over her shaved crown. The sponge pressed against her scalp. Cold water immediately began to run down her forehead, into her eyebrows, over her closed eyelids. The sponge had been used before, maybe a dozen times. It had been soaked in buckets between executions, wrung out, reused. But it still held something older than water. Sweat, maybe. Tears. The last secretions of the women and men who had sat in this same chair before her. The executioner wasn't finished. From the table beside him, he lifted a second piece of leather, a black mask cut with holes for the eyes and nose, meant to spare the witnesses the sight of a face contorted by electricity. He stretched it across her face. The leather was stiff, cold. It smelled of oil and old sweat. The eye holes were too large. She could still see the priest, the warden, the witnesses leaning forward in their folding chairs. Then he buckled it behind the chair. The leather pressed her lips together, her jaw. The buckle clinked against the iron frame. Clara's breath came in short, sharp bursts now. The chest strap wouldn't let her lungs expand fully, and the mask made every inhale sound like a sob. The straps held. The warden looked at the clock. The governor's phone line was open. It was tradition. A last-minute commutation. A stay of execution. A miracle. Clara listened to the silence. The electricity hit her like a physical blow. Her entire body went rigid. Her back arched against the chest strap. Her fingers curled into claws. Her jaw, the mask muffling her, opened in a silent scream. She tasted copper now. Not salt. Copper. The electricity was burning the water on her skin, burning the sponge, burning her. The final surge. By now, Clara Moss was no longer in the chair. Not really. She was floating somewhere above it, watching a stranger's body jerk and smoke and fall still. Is that me? She wondered. The electricity found her heart. It squeezed it once, twice, then stopped it. The doctor stepped forward. He placed 2 fingers on her neck, the left side where the electrode wasn't. He waited. Nothing. Time of death, he said, 6:01 p.m. Later, The men behind the glass would say Clara Moss died hard. They would say she didn't cry out. They would say she stared straight ahead until the end. They were wrong about the staring. In the last second of the first cycle, the moment the electricity seized her spine and her vision went white, Clara Moss saw Roy Bennett's face, and she smiled. The mask hid it. But some things don't need witnesses.